Hey again, Kevin Fry, Fry Custom Painting. We're continuing this project of painting my hallway. I want to show you guys how to paint a wall. So today we are using a Sherwin-Williams product, Cashmere. Cashmere is a very interesting latex-based paint. I really enjoy it. It's at least kind of a smoother, softer finish than some of the other lines that they might have. This one is an eggshell finish, so it's one grade above flat paint. A little bit shiny, just slightly shinier than a flat paint. But it's not so shiny that it looks shiny. You know what I mean? It's not quite a satin sheen. So we are using the eggshell latex, and I'm choosing a snowbound color. So as you can see, it's white, but the snowbound color is not really a stark white. It's more of I like to call it a warm white. It's almost an off-white, but not quite an off-white. When you walk into a room that is painted snowbound, you'll say, oh, it looks white. But then if you actually put it up next to stark white, where that has no tint in it whatsoever, you'll see the difference. That snowbound is a little bit of a warmer shade. So I really like snowbound. It looks white, it feels white, but it feels like a cozy white, rather than a harsh, cold, stark white. So we're doing snowbound in my house. So we're going to start by cleaning off the lid. Now I've already used about half of this gallon. I'm going to finish it off today. So when you open a can of paint, whether it's new or it's been used after it's already been shaken, you want to clean off the lid first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my brush and go around the lid. I'm going to scrape that into the bucket. I want to make sure I get the bristles down into the crack there of the rim, because that's where the paint will dry. And if the paint dries in there, you can't really seal it back onto the can again. And then that will cause the paint inside the can to dry out faster as well. So clean out that groove in the lid. And what you want to try to get is paint to fill up your sash about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way down. Here's how we do that. Come here, I'm going to show you what we're doing. Now normally if you open a brand new bucket of paint, you don't want to work out of a brand new bucket of paint. You want to pour about half of the bucket into another empty bucket so that you have room to splash and tap the brush onto the side of the bucket. But this bucket has already been used about halfway, so I'm just going to work right out of this can because it's just a whole lot easier. So come here and look inside the bucket. I'm going to dip my sash just a little bit. I would say 1/4 of an inch into the paint so that it's about that full. I'm going to jiggle it around inside, or some people will tap it on the sides like that, so that you don't have dripping paint. If I were to just dip it in and go to town on it, it's got all that dripping happening. See that? That's not good. We don't want that. So I'm going to shake it a little bit inside the bucket, and that's why we always work out of a half full bucket, so that you have room to shake it without making a mess. Or you can tap it against the sides of the bucket like that, and that'll get rid of those drips. But you still have a good amount of paint in the sash. Now, when you're first starting out with a new brush, or a brush that's not had paint in it already, you're going to want to start in a corner where you're painting both sides as much as you can. You know, there might be a space where you don't have that, and that's okay. So what you want to try to do is get into the corner first and go up and down. And really what we're trying to accomplish here is just getting the paint into the sash. I'm more concerned about this than I am that. Now, if you are painting, let's say, an accent wall or something like that, where you don't want paint on both surfaces, what can you do? Well, you just paint the middle of the wall. And this is okay if you're using like a flat paint or an eggshell, where it's not going to easily leave any kind of marks behind. You're going to go back over that with a roller anyway. It's going to be covered up. Otherwise, another option you can do is work around something that's going to be cut in anyway. So for example, up here, get into the corner around the edges of a device on the wall, for example, a thermostat or something else. And I'm really just trying to get the paint into the sash there. Once I've done that about 3 times, that's sufficient paint to really be useful for the rest of the project. And now here's where we get into the skill, okay? When we're painting edges like this, come over here and see the inside of the edge. We're gonna start like this. So we wanna have this edge be parallel with the sash of the brush. Now I'm gonna have to go back and caulk all of that crack, but for the sake of the video, we're just gonna start it like this. So I'm not going right into it. I'm putting the bristles kind of on the wall and then pushing the paint into the crack like that. And then I go down, just like that, until the paint starts to wear out. And I go back up and I feather it out. Why do we feather it out? Because if you don't feather it out, and I'll give you an example of this, if you don't feather it out, if you just leave it, you're gonna have this big drip, this big glob of paint right there, and that will dry and you will have a textural wall from then on. And that's typically not what people want. So you feather it out so that when it's time to go back and roll, the roller will cover all of that up and you're not going to see a difference in texture between the painted portion and the rolled portion. Now let's talk about the corner. I showed you guys how to paint a corner before. Now we're going to do it with paint. So come down here and take a look at this corner that we've already worked on. When I'm painting a corner, again, I'm not pushing it directly into the corner. I'm starting on the wall and I'm pushing the paint into the corner from the wall. And then I go up. I drag the paint out of the corner. I push it into the corner and I drag it out of the corner. Then feather it out a little bit, just like that. And then we have paint in the corner on the wall and it's not touching either of the other 2 surfaces. And now it's time to roll. I've already cut in around the edges of this portion of the wall with a brush, as I showed you before. I've already gone ahead and finished all of that. So now we're gonna roll it out. Now, what kind of roller nap should we use? The nap is actually the cover. It's this part, the roller cover, and the nap is how thick this fuzzy part is. This is a 3/8 inch nap. As you can see, this is how thick it is. If you get a 1/2 inch or a full inch or 3/4 inch, it's gonna get thicker and thicker on here. That is used for like textural surfaces, like a brick fireplace or some other surface where there's a lot of texture, a lot of indentations, a lot of bumps and things like that that you have to work around, work over. But this is just an interior drywall wall. It's pretty smooth, so I think we can go along with a 3/8 inch nap. It shouldn't be a problem. And generally, this is what you use for most projects. What you want to be careful about when you're buying a roller cover is the quality. If you try to save some money, you think you're saving money by buying a generic brand that's low quality, you get 50 covers for 10 bucks or something like that, don't buy it. What's going to happen is the fuzz, the nap, is actually going to start coming off of the roller, even if it's a brand new roller. And when you're painting, you're rolling the paint on, you're going to start to see little hairs in the paint from this, and that's a disaster. So when you're buying roller covers, go ahead and invest the extra money and get a good quality roller cover. Another way that you can mitigate some of that problem, though, even with higher quality roller covers, it's a good idea to take some painter's tape. I don't have anything with me right now at the moment, but just take some blue tape or green frog tape that you might have and cover the cover with the tape. You can do it either in strips or wrap it all the way around and then take the tape off. And that tape is going to pull any of the loose fuzz off of the roller cover that you don't want to get into your paint. But this has already been done. This is ready to go. Now, I'm not going to paint like this. Again, no self-respecting painter knows what he's doing is going to paint like this. Yes, there is a handle here, but this is not what we do. The only time I would ever hold the roller frame itself is if I'm painting a very small, tight space, like inside a small closet or something where a handle, a pole, cannot fit. Why do I not want to hold a roller like this? Well, because I've got a bad back. mean, my back is gonna get tired. If I'm painting a whole wall top to bottom like this, I'm gonna be bending over a lot more to get to the bottom and stretching up a lot more to get to the top. And that's just not gonna be good for my arms, it's not gonna be good for my back, it's not gonna be good for my shoulders. And it's more likely to leave mistakes, because what's gonna happen is you've got a lot more moving parts involved when you're doing this, and there are a lot more things that can go wrong. You can lose your balance, and these slight little, movements of the body will leave lines in the paint, so you don't wanna do that. What you wanna do is get a pole. Now, you can go to any paint store and get like a wooden or bamboo pole that's about 5 to 6 feet long, and those are great. They're cheap, they're not too bad, but sometimes those are too long, sometimes they're too short. What I actually really love doing is I got about 3 or 4 of those and I cut them. I just took them back to my yard and I took a saw out and I cut them, and I made different lengths of poles. I have another one that is about, 8 inches long. And I have another full length one, and then I have other ones that I've purchased that are 12 feet, 16 feet. But a good idea is, if you're doing a small space like in a hallway, get a regular wooden pole and just cut it to fit. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm gonna put this on here, and this way, I can paint in the hallway and it doesn't touch the other wall, but I still have a pole to hold on to. And what this does for me is it gives me more balance. It lets me paint higher without having to raise my arms as much. I can paint lower without having to bend down. But what's even better, if I have the space for it, is to use a longer pole. This one's still not a full length pole, it's like a 3/4 length pole, but it still lets me balance the roller much more easily. Generally what you want to do, if it's at all possible, is get away from the wall. Stand as far back from the wall as you can, so that it requires as little arm movement to move the roller as necessary, okay? It also creates a great sense of balance. It's almost like a dance move where you're moving up and gracefully moving down so that you don't leave roller marks behind as easily. And you don't get exhausted, because if you're doing this 8 hours a day like I do, you can get tired pretty fast if you're always moving up and down, up and down. But if you just move your arms, your hands just a little bit to get the movement done, you save yourself a lot of energy. So I'm just gonna paint this portion of the wall. I'm gonna use the 3/4 length pole first until I get to about the edge of this wall here on the opposite side, and then I'll switch to the shorter pole. Let me show you how to do this. Now here's how we load a roller cover to get ready for painting. If you're using a brand new roller cover and it's not been used before, it doesn't have any paint in it, here's how we start. You start at the top of the pan, okay? I've already poured the paint into the bottom of the pan. You start at the top and you roll it down into the paint. You never submerge the roller in the paint completely. You just tap the edge of it, and then you bring it back up. Roll it down again, tap the edge, bring it back up, roll it down again. And you just keep doing that over and over and over again until you get the full surface of the roller covered, like that. But as you can tell, there are still some dry spots, like that right there, and there, and there, and there. It still looks relatively dry. Just like with the brush, we want to get the paint soaked into the nap, okay? So we're going to keep rolling the pan for a while until it gets really saturated with the paint, okay? We're going to bring it over to the wall, and let me show you how to do this. Start in the corner. We never start in the middle of the wall. You start in the corner on the side of the wall, okay? Now, if I have a wall on this side, I don't want the frame to be pointed on that side of the wall. You see, because then the frame is going to scratch this side of the wall, and that's not going to be good. So what I want to do is flip it over so that I have this end, the open end of the frame, pointed at that wall. And I'm going to not go right up to the edge. I'm going to start a little bit into the wall. I'm going to go up and down. And after I get that part done, then I start to angle the roller closer to the wall that I want to get up next to. and I kind of hover the roller just right up next to the wall. And then I pull it back, and I go past the portion where I started, and I come back down again. And that's it. That's the first application of the paint. Then we come back over here. Now the second time you load the roller, you don't need to do it as much as you did the first time. Just a little bit is enough. Just like that. When you start again, you don't start on the part where you just painted, you start it a little bit over, leaving a little bit of a gap there. Because what you're going to do, you're going to pull the paint back down, and then bring it back over to the gap that you just made. And then we're going to come back where I started. And we bring it all the way down to the bottom. Now, one of the problems that I often see painters do, especially if it's a homeowner, they're doing a DIY project, or it's just an inexperienced painter, is they'll leave roller marks behind. What is a roller mark? It's where you actually see the roller on the paint. After the paint's already dried, you can see where the roller has gone, because you see the lines on the edges. That's basically what it is. It's the ends of the roller leaving globs and lines of paint behind. How do you prevent that? Well, there's a very simple technique. Come here and I'll show you. I'm gonna just go over the part that I've already painted just for demonstration purposes. When you are, after you've already spread the paint on, in order to make the roller lines vanish, for example, if I were to go over this, I don't know if you can see it on the camera so easily, but there are some lines there and there that are left behind. How do you get those to go away? Well, you start on the side where you've already painted, and you work away from that. And what I'm doing, you can't see it in the camera, but what I'm doing is I'm slightly twisting the roller so that this end part lifts up just slightly, and this is a little more heavily on the wall. So there's more pressure on this side and very little or no pressure on that side. And I work toward the pressurized side of the roller. And as I keep going like that, now if I were to just stop right here, you can see the roller marks, right? But I'm not stopping there, I'm gonna keep going. And that makes the roller lines vanish. So now, even if I change my perspective and I look at it in different lights, there's no roller line there anymore. When this dries, it's gonna be a beautiful finish.